Good day, people of YouTubes, and welcome to the Tiles Understood. Actually, what do they call this when they did this with Cairo? Unconfusing the Tiles or something of that nature. I'll work out what I'm actually going to call this a little later, but this is basically going to be a general overview of a full and complete game of Mahjong. This was actually one of the games that we played yesterday, sort of practice games because enough people were around. I played in 1 and 3, but this is the game in the middle that I didn't actually play, but was sort of reviewing 5 minutes in the past and observing the chat as things going on. These are very much casual games, so obviously some people will try things that are a little outrageous or things they wouldn't normally do in a situation, but it's still probably a good base to see and identify why people are doing certain things, what they could have done differently, or what I would personally have done differently. That's not necessarily a correct thing at all. And also generally just see if I can give some general advice on how the game is played. So, for this first game, we're mostly going to be sitting behind solo. We might go and observe the others as we go through this. It'll depend on what's happening and what's interesting. So, what I would normally do is skip the first 4 or 5 discards, because in most cases people will just be getting rid of their loose terminals, their loose honor tiles, and whatever else. But I'm also going to address something else that should generally be considered when you initially open up your hand of tiles, and that's evaluating how good your hand is. Now in some cases this is fairly obvious. In Solar's case, he has a pair of bonus tiles, or Yakuhai. He also has free Dora. So that means that his expected hand value is going to be Mungan if he can finish it. Another metric for saying how good this hand is the number of blocks he's got finished. So what we mean by blocks is, when you complete a hand, typically you are after 5 blocks, a pair and 4 sets of 3 in some way, shape or form. So in this case we can see he's got a pair of Yakuhai, he's got a pair of Dora, which extends to this. So this is technically a block that can either go 1, 2, 3 or 2, 3, 4, and a pair of 2s, which could be a triplet later down the line as required. He also has technically a free 5, so this might even be considered 2 blocks together, or 1 block there. I'm not up with block theory, I'll be honest, so I don't know why I started talking about it, but still, it is a useful metric for just evaluating the hand. We've then got another open thing here, and another open thing here. So, yeah, 2-sided weights. So there's a lot of tiles that improve the hand, and in terms of loose tiles, he's just got the 1 dragon, the 9, and the 3. So if we consider ideal draws for a few moments, so he draws the last East, gets rid of that, he draws a 6, gets rid of that, he draws a 4, gets rid of that, he's then in a 2-sided Tenpai 4, 6, 9. So it's a 3-away hand which is worth Mungan. This is an exceptionally good start. If we just go flick around the table a little bit here, we'll just see how everybody else's hands stack up on that metrics as well. So here again, we've got a pair of 1s, got pair and 1 off, which can either be a triplet of 6s or a 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8. He's got 1 complete run here, which with a slide extension, which may or may not be a loose tile as things develop, depending on how this goes. And obviously a 2 free here, which is another 2-sided weight potentially. So either your draws, draw an 8, drop the north, draw a 4, drop the 6, and then drop the 7 for 1 there. So he's also 3 away from Tenpai at this point. However, his expected value isn't as high as Solar's, because he's not got any Dora, but it could still be a reasonably good Pinfu, potentially Itsu. I know I say possible Itsu a lot, but when you're evaluating the opening hand, you are sort of imagining what's the optimum you could get from this. So something like Reach, Pinfu, Itsu is probably the high end of what Draconis can expect, which means this hand can potentially get to Mungan. It's probably going to be less than that though. So moving over to Debbie. Debbie probably has the worst starting hand of everybody here, just generally looking over things. So we've got a pair of alien wins, and what we mean by alien wins are win tiles that won't give you any bonuses for having them. So, I mean, generally speaking, they're worth getting rid of. They're usually safe to other players, because the only person who will likely want to call these is the player across Solar, and that's only if he's got them. And since you have a pair of them, it's unlikely he's also got a pair of them. It can happen, but, you know, they're going to be reasonably safe tiles as the game goes on. We have an 8, 9, 9, which is probably the least useful of this type of shape, because really only a 7 or a 9 helps with this. I suppose 8 does as well, gives you 2 pairs. But again, it's much more limited than, say, the 6, 6, 7, which has a lot more options available to it. A couple of a single 2-sided weight, a closed weight here, requiring 7. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loose tiles. So, again, optimal play here. I guess west for east. 7, 4, so 7. Yeah, so 4 or 5 away at this point. So Debbie is on a slower hand than the rest, but again, it means there are more tiles that actually help out. I think the ideal thing here would be to, again, get rid of the loose terminals. Hope to draw something connected to this 4. Hope to draw something in the Sozu range to help this out. Because if you were to draw a 5 here, you could get rid of the 8 and then have 2 two-sided weights, which would be a bit more ideal. And if you do happen to luck into a 7, which is always possible, then obviously that speeds up the clock a little bit. So moving across to Mono. Mono also has a reasonably good starting hand. As we can see here, we've got 2 completed sets already. 2, 3, 3 again. Potential pair, potential two-sided. It's a loose 5 at the moment, but loose middle tiles like the 3 and the 5 are generally more useful than loose honor tiles, because you can always draw number tiles in and around them to improve them. You can't really do that with these. Also, Yakuhai tile that is worth something to everybody versus Yakuhai tile that is only worth stuff to you. So the North is generally a safer tile to get rid of because most people, unless they've got alien win sets, won't want them. The Dragon is always going to be a dangerous one. But again, it's how fast you draw a pair of either of these. And these are probably the 2 tiles that Mono will get rid of first. But anyway, let's move back to Solar and just see how this plays out. So, initial West discard from Debbie. And yeah, again, getting rid of these tiles. I'm not justifying the 3 over the 9 here, because again, the middle tiles are always going to have more things that can connect to them. South isn't a Yakuhai either, and again, only one person's going to be interested in Draconis. General discard theory says that if you discard a tile that the player to the left of you can call, you get to draw more often. So if you're sitting west, your loose tile should be gotten rid of in the order of south, east, north, unless of course there are other factors involved. I.e. you now see 2 norths, so any north you discard is probably worth getting rid of over the south because there's far fewer of them around. So just going around the table here, Debbie got rid of her pair, which is not ideal. It is an alien win, so there is usually some justification in getting rid of those early, but you tend to wait and see if you can get a triplet because, again, efficiency and whatever else. Draconis and Mono getting rid of their tiles here. Again, Mono discarding the north upon seeing another north discarded makes it far less likely than the red to be drawn at some stage. But again, it's getting rid of middle tiles versus getting rid of terminals. So Debbie's got rid of a pair of wests in her initial turns. Now you get rid of a 9. Red Dragon follows. Okay, so East and Core. This absolutely is fine in this instance, and it's one of the reasons you try to get rid of them early as well, because if they are bonus tiles and you get rid of them early, it forces people to attack before the hand is in a good state. Obviously, this is a theory, you don't know that for sure. They could hit tempo off that first draw, but this is fairly common for the early stage of the game. It just means you have a slight indicator of what they're doing. Sorry, I just meant to be back to Mono's draw here. So Mono's draw at this point has drawn a 7. So the logic here and why you get rid of the 3 in this instance is to open this up. So this gives you the 2-sided weight here rather than anything else. Also, it's middle tile, middle tile, middle tile. It's a little awkward. But by keeping the 7, you also now have a 7-8 shape as well as the 5-6-7. So again, more 2-sided weights. You also don't want to get rid of a 2 here. In a normal game, I probably would say get rid of a 2 because that establishes your pair. And if he gets rid of this, he doesn't have one. But still, you don't want to get rid of a door opportunity because it's additional value, and additional value is always to be sought where possible. So that's why he's getting rid of the 3 here. And hoping that he will eventually pair up either the 5, the 3, or the 6. And again, most people now are just still getting rid of their middle tiles. The only person not doing that is Mono, because Mono has actually had a flying start and is actually nearing tempo with that. As you can see, by keeping the middle tile, he's now got the 5, so that connects those 2 up. The 3 is now no longer going to be required, and at some stage he'll do the same with the 5-man. But everybody else is still playing middle tiles. I actually missed something going back here. Why did you get rid of the 4 in this position? So drawing a 3. So Solar is obviously looking at increased value here and just trying to absolutely assure he's going to get this Honitsu as well, which is an additional 2. So what that would give him is East Honitsu and Freedora, which is Hanuman without a reach. So again, it makes a sort of sense here. It might still be correct though to play the Red Dragon and see how this develops later, because you're only 1 away from Tenpai at that point. Whereas by making this move, you are basically 2 away from Tenpai. So that's trading up speed for or if it's trading up speed for value, which is ultimately something that everybody will do at this table at various points. Draconis getting rid of a 6 to allow his 6/7, so his 2-sided weight opens up a bit more. Debbie's still getting rid of loose tiles, and Mono is just discarding what he draws. Which Debbie calls. So going on why you would call this. Debbie obviously looking to try and protect her dealership a little bit here. It's a bit of a stretch, I've got to be honest. But you could get rid of... Well, actually, no, you can't get rid of a 9 for Tanya. You have 5 terminal tiles. So all simples is not a hand that is viable here. So the only thing I can think of is that she's considering converting all of her pairs into triplets and going for a Toy hand. Now, when considering Toy, obviously you have to consider that it's an obvious hand every kind of way you're doing it after you've got your second triplet in another suit. And the easiest way to defend against the Toy is to discard things you already see 2 of, because it's less likely they'll have the corresponding pair and be able to draw from it. The one other consideration, I suppose, with Toy is how likely are the tiles you've currently got to be discarded by somebody else. So in this case, Debbie's actually done reasonably well with her sets here. 9s and 2s are pairs, and each of those are towards edges. Edge tiles are far more likely to be played because, as we already established, middle tiles are more useful for connecting up sequences and getting 2-sided weights. So, we'll see how that develops. And obviously still getting rid of loose tiles. So this changes the game a little bit here. So Draconis gets rid of his last loose tile and is reaching on a 3-sided weight. It's a really good 147 Manzu, potentially Itsu weight. So he's actually hit the target that we kind of set earlier. So reach, Pinfu, Itsu is his optimal hand at this point. Meanwhile, Solar has drawn a 9, so this is his decision turn here. He's got to debate what he's going to pass against his hand. All we have a knowledge of it is it's an early reach, so generally play your own game is a usual good bit of advice. The hand is usually not as good as a hand that is reaching in the second row. In this case it is, but again. So, he will obviously consider what he can discard here. The Red Dragon is a potential target here, but it might be a little risky. 1 is out, so it can be played, but I would normally try and always play a safe tile on the Ipatsu, because, again, it's worth more points. And the last thing you want to do against a reach is give them more points, which is why you don't Khan after a reach. Decides to risk the 1. It passes. 1 was not a definite safe tile here. We have no real Sozu indicators, unfortunately. That 6 means nothing because it was the tile before the reach. The most dangerous tiles on a reach, generally speaking, are the ones either side of the last 2 tiles, in my opinion. So my immediate danger tiles would be considered 6 and 8 dot, and 7 and 5 so. Obviously not the case in this one. The secondary consideration is what hasn't he played yet, and that would be Manzu. The only potential reason you would play Manzu is if you looked at Debbie's hand, she's discarded 1/4 before the reach, and that might indicate that that vein is safe. Obviously it isn't, but it's still something that I would consider if I had absolutely no further options, is what was played by the player before, and were they able to do anything with those. But again, that requires you to actually check whether there was any pauses. Obviously in a replay we don't really have that option. So, Mono has a hand that is very close to Tenpai, but decides to play the 8. There's not a lot of help here with sort of indicators of whether that's going to be safe or not. But if you're ever unsure, playing tiles towards the end of the number sequences is usually going to be safer than playing tiles in the middle. So Debbie goes and gets a 7/9. Not really that helpful to her in a lot of ways, but again, possibly a safety consideration. She played the absolute safe tile and then played the Suji. So Suji theory suggests that most people will try to get these two-sided weights here, so this sort of 5-6 for example. Therefore, if they discard something, they probably don't want the tiles that are free either side of it. That being said, there are such things, and we mention it quite a lot, Suji traps. Oh boy, the Suji traps. Where, because of an earlier discard, that, say this free man for example, because that was discarded very early and your hand built after, you built up the 4-5 after that point, or you say had a 3-5-7 in your hand and decided to play the 3, that means you're waiting on a 6. That's the kind of Suji traps that tend to happen, and as they come up I will show them. So Debbie's still playing safe here, playing the 3-8 for Suji. No call. Obviously Draconis has to discard everything he draws, and it's his first actual bit of information for the table. Middle 5 is fine. 3 is risky. Mono obviously playing the safe tile, and that's probably thankful here. You will note that Mono actually played the safe tile the turn he got the connecting here. So he could have actually, if he'd have wanted to. No, he couldn't have done. Sorry, ignore me. He doesn't have a pair. That's what threw me here. He obviously has a pair of 7s now, but not having a pair means he wasn't able to reach that turn. So Debbie's still on the attack and has drawn an extra 7, so that's helping the Toy situation out. And plays one of the tiles that I would deem reasonably risky against this, at least unknown. But Mono has actually played an 8 as well recently. Recently by his own playing the... Why did he play the 8 actually? Hold on. He played the 8 from here after a reach. What are your options really? You could play a 7 I suppose, but you're still then lacking a pair. So... Although I suppose that gives you the option of going into a 5-8 weight here, because you've obviously got 5, 6, 7, 8, which is obviously a run plus one number either side of it. So you could go into a two-sided weight that way. Not sure. Anyway, moving on to turn 9. So South is a live one, and then we have Mono's Pursuit Reach. So... Oh, South wasn't live, sorry, he's played 1. So Mono finally draws a middle dot tile, gets the completed set here, and is waiting on a 1-4-7 dot weight. Slightly less good than this one, obviously, in terms of value, because all this really is Reach, Pinfu, and 1 Dora. So 3 hand maximum. Draconis could get a bigger value hand here if the 1 turns up. But hey, there are now a lot of dangerous tiles out there. Also, Solar has completed his Honitsu with that. He could have gone for the South admittingly, but he needs to complete these. He also isn't quite dead by yet. Still needs 1 more draw. That will do it. So, what has happened here is we now have a 2 3-dot weight, I believe. So there's anything else, unless I'm being blind, which I occasionally am. Nope, that's the 2 and 3-dot. So there are only 3 winning tiles left, but you are Tenpai for it, and obviously one of these is Vedora. Debbie, however, calls the 9-dot that you play in response to this. I wonder if there's a way you could have gone around this, actually, with a 9. No, I don't think so. You could have gone two-sided, but you'd have to risk the door of 5 for that. So, while 5 is safe, we know that. Actually, no, do we know that? Yeah, we do know that. 5 was played after the reach. I don't know why you'd play the 5 after the reach. But anyway. Oh, this has gone on for a long while, hasn't it? Oh, I don't know. Right, so ignoring the logic of why Debbie played the 5-dot, at least in part, I get is going for Toy and she is now in Tenpai for it. But obviously that wasn't the case when you played that discard. This now puts all 4 players in Tenpai, which is an interesting position. The ones it's going to worry potentially the most is Draconis/Mono, who have reached and there has been no respect. Which is fine, people can always afford to attack, and sometimes the way to beat a big hand or a big reach is to just win quickly yourself. So everyone's in Tenpai at this point, and I believe everybody is going to auto-discard. Which eventually means somebody is about to deal in. Not really too much to say at this point, because the only strategy comes is if somebody's about to fold. Obviously Mono does not have the option to fold, and Draconis does not have the option to fold, And we have our first win, which is Reach, Pinfu, Dora, and 1 bonus Dora from the Reach. So, some opportunities were missed, some opportunities were attempted and didn't go for, but let's see how the second hand develops. So I'm not going to go too much detail over this, but obviously by the same metrics of what people have got, we now have Draconis as dealer with a lot of Mansu that's set up, a couple of loose tiles, one of which is Vidora, and 2 red dragons. Solar, 2 loose alien tiles, 2 honor tiles that are on their own, mono, alien pair, bonus Dora, and a couple of loose tiles that you'll want to get rid of at some point. Debbie has, again, 2 loose tiles, a lot of reds out actually, I just realised, so that's going to happen fairly shortly, and a couple of middle tiles that are not currently connected to anything but could be in the future. So let's go on a few turns here. So just initial discarding from the first 3 or 4 turns. So Draconis obviously got his Dragon Weight again, to be playing that early to force the issue, and also because it makes sense to. Mono's done nothing too special, just getting rid of these terminals, same with Solar. Draconis though has not done the typical discard pattern here, and that is indicative of him going for a certain type of hand. In this case, because he's got the call, you know that it's going to be a half flush, or 2 Han, plus obviously the dragon. It might not definitely be that, because these are still towards the edge. These could be loose tiles that he's getting rid of. We can see that they're not at this stage. So, moving on with a normal game at this point. So the 5 helps out, still getting rid of loose tiles, and now Vidora are going to start flooding out now that they've been played. Mono obviously had the opportunity to call south, but it's an alien win, so calling it doesn't give any bonuses. But he can use it as a pair for a Pinfu or another run style hand. And he's got rid of his first non-terminal discard here with the 5 dot, because he's obviously out of these things. It's the least connected and allows him to have a run, and he already has a pair of the south, so he doesn't need a second pair. Alright, Debbie gets a triplet of the 1s, 4-5, a run there, and is actually Ishanten at this point. If you can connect something to, if you can get a pair of 4s, or draw an 8, so you actually have 10-5 by discarding the 4. Normally though, what you would do in this sort of situation is you would hope to connect something to the 4, so say a 5 or a 3, so get rid of one of the 1-man, because that a triplet can be downgraded to a pair quite easily, and then obviously draw the last one for 10-5. So 1 away technically, but 2 away for probably the most optimal hand. And by that discard, we now have Draconis on definitely a half flush. My usual kind of indicator of whether somebody's in Tenpai with this type of hand, though, is whether they've discarded a loose Manzu tile. So you can kind of see from the way the hand's developed here, we got a 2-3-4-5 style shape here, so a 2-sided 3-4. We have the established pair of 8s, and we have a 9, which is probably going to be a loose tile at some stage. And when that comes out, that is when I would consider a player to be in Tenpai with a half flush hand, when they first play the Manzu, or the whatever suit they're actually in. So let's see how this goes here. I think at this point you probably still want to get rid of your loose terminal dragon at this stage. It is late, we're now in turn 6, but you still would prefer to force it. He might be genuinely worried about half flush already, which I guess makes sense in context. He is the dealer. Respect the dealer. Their points are worth more than yours if they win, so the last thing you want to do is give them value. But it might have been your last opportunity to force that now. Now you're kind of stuck in a position where you have to draw a pair of them. Okay, so Debbie actually hits the 8-so and goes into a 2-sided breach, which is absolutely fair enough. It's early days. There are, I believe, all the tiles available at this point. Obviously, we can see they're in various people's hands, but 3-6 with all 8 tiles available to draw, it's a good reach. It's not very valuable reach, I've got to be honest, but it's got a reasonable shot of working out. So, Draconis is committed to his hand at this point, but decides that the 4-so follow-up is probably better than the unknown 4, at least in the first discard, because the last thing you want to do is give somebody a Patsu. So if I was playing this hand, I would play the 2 here. this 1-2 edge weight is probably going to be less valuable than the 4-5 at this point, and you happen to know one of these is a safe tile, which would be why I would go there. So let's play the 9 instead. Again, if you're ever unsure, going to 1 and 9s is usually going to be better, because unless they're in a specific hand shape that requires it, there's less things you can deal into with a 1 or a 9. Not to say that's always going to work, but hey. Okay, so Draconis is continuing to commit, plays the 4 dot. It's a risky tile, but now it's no longer a Patsu, so it's 1 less Han than if he did done that the other way around. However, he is not in Tenpai after 3 calls, which, you know, might not be the best thing. He also has very limited ability to defend against the hand. Obviously, none of these are Debbie's winning tile, but he's got no way to know that. All he knows is Debbie has played a 2, a 7, and a red, so might not want Honitz. Might want Marzu tiles, but equally you can see 2 and 4. Most dangerous tiles, again, I would normally suggest around the reach tile and around the couple of tiles beforehand. The 2, however, was early enough that it might just be unrelated to the hand, in which case we know it is, but that's my general read on how I view hands when I'm looking at defense. So, 2 and White Dragon here. Now, White Dragon's an interesting one for a couple of reasons from Mono here. That is, I mean, Mono is Ishanten, so 1 away from a winning, from a hand you could reach with. Wait, if you can discard the 3 of a 7, or if he draws one of these and be in a closed weight for the other bit, which is the Suji Trap we mentioned a little earlier. But White Dragon is live, and it could very possibly have been what Draconis was waiting on if he was in, say, a White Dragon pairweight here. And Draconis might be folding out here. I don't agree with a 9 discard unless you are folding out, but hey. So, again, option of 2 or 5 to keep the hand shape you currently got. Decides to get rid of the 2. Again, it's safe because Debbie's played one, but also it's close to the edges, so it was less likely to be useful to anybody. And again, playing out your pairs of 1s, which is fine. And there we go. So this is what I meant by the kind of CG trap here, at least in terms of how this works. If we suggest that this is actually a 7-so, then you could play the 3 reach and then you're waiting on the 6, which is obviously a Suji to the 3, so therefore using the 3 away rule or the Suji rule is not an absolute in terms of defense. This obviously is not a Suji trap, this is just a 4-7 Sozu weight, but unfortunately that is a deal in. Unfortunately for Debbie, it's not a very high value deal, win. It's only 1300 because it was literally reach only. Ways to improve the hand, I mean, honestly, it was just the way the draw happened. She drew the middle 8-so, but if she hadn't drawn that, she could have dropped the 1 and tried to complete this other way in another way, but again, that happens. So a cheap win, and that puts her back up to 2nd. Okay, so moving into East 3. Just a quick evaluation of the starting hands, as always. So a couple of loose tiles here. Again, one of them is an alien tile, so that's fine. One of them is potentially a bonus tile for everybody else. And a loose 6, really. So 3 away is not terrible. Could do with a bit of luck here, maybe draw a 7. At a high end, we're probably looking at Tanyo Pinfu. However, both of the runs being 2-3 means it's most likely just going to be Pinfu. And it's unlikely you can get any Dora with this hand either. So it's low value, but you're dealer, and a repeat is fine for you most likely. So yeah, I guess go speed. If you get the opportunity to get some 4s off of Draconis, it might be worth cheating these, but most likely you're just looking for a concealed hand here and just going for Pinfu. Mono's hand is kind of terrible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 unique tiles is not a Kokushi start. I'll give you even money that Mono goes for Kokushi with that anyway. He's in the lead though. He could he can afford to not necessarily go for this. He'll probably play defense the moment somebody else looks like they're in Tenpai or reaches. But again, he's probably going to say might as well. He wins the game if he gets it. He probably won't. Debbie's hand looks okay as well. You got a run and pair. Obviously got the middle 7. Potential upgrade to E-Peiko, double run. A couple of loose dot tiles, a couple of loose Sozu, couple of loose West to Sozu at this point. West is also her wind, so she might hold on to that for a turn or 2, see if she can develop that, although we already know she's not going to be able to do that, based on what we can see. Draconis' start is looking fairly promising, in all honesty. 5, 6, 7, and a 1, 3, 5 shape. So obviously 2 tiles that if you draw for 2 or the 4, can discard the other end one. Hopefully in Draconis' case the 4 is drawn, so you can get rid of the 1, and has a double run set up there, plus a pair, plus a waiting thing. And again, 3 loose tiles, but if you can draw something connected to one of those Sozu, that fixes that problem for him. So, let's spin on for the first 4 turns and just see if anything has significantly changed. So, yeah, so Mono is actually going for his Kokushi at this point, or at least a Chanter style hand by the look of it. Knowing him, though, he probably is just going Kokushi. So Solar has got rid of a couple of his loose tiles here, has drawn a potential Ipeiko shape at this point, and we'll get rid of the 1 because it doesn't really serve a lot for him. 5 dot discarded by Mono, which again doesn't fit in with either of the 2 plans he could be going for. And Debbie completes a run, which I think gives nope, that's an 8 rather 6, so doesn't give Ishanten, or even then it wouldn't give Ishanten, but definitely developing. Draconis has drawn something connected to one of his 4 or 7, so he's got rid of the other one, and is looking generally quite good here. 2 runs, 1 loose tile with the 8 potentially, but he's Ishanten, so he can draw 3, 6, 3, 6, and be Tenpai for the other shape. Alright, Solar draws and discards the 1. I'm hoping that's a misclick because that's Tenpai actually, isn't it? Yeah, so at this point, Solar could reach with... He'd have to reach because he has no other Yaku, but he could reach for a 2-sided weight, 1, 4, and 6 of those are out based on what I can see. It's early, your dealer, so that might even be enough. It wouldn't be a huge value, I've got to be honest. Certainly not if you're considering catching a Mono with this hand. But I've certainly been considering that. Ignoring that, while your upgrade options, because you need to pair up one of these to do it, to get an Ipeiko out of this. If you draw 4, you could cut a 5, and... yeah, actually, there we go. So, yeah, actually, you could have done that. That would have been better. That would have get you pin through. What am I... Yeah, I'm talking madness. So you keep that, discard the 5. You have reach Pinfu. And potentially 3 Uridura with the 6s. Yeah, ignore me. I don't know why I was thinking about discarding the 4 there. If you're at all worried about Mono, then maybe that would be safety. But you gave up a Tenpai position here, unfortunately. Still, we'll see how that develops and whether that backfires. So Mono's Chanter is helped out. He decides not to take the Chanter because he still wants to go for this darn Kokushi. Cutting your losses is probably something that you should be doing here. Because, I mean, it's not impossible for you to develop the rest of this here. You know your West pair is kind of dead because 2 of those are out. But at this point, you could play East, you could play North to try and just help yourself out a little bit. But I'd be looking for Chanter rather than trying to force the Kokushi from this far back. Alright, Debbie calls the 7s here. This is a bad call in my opinion for a number of reasons. Firstly, you've broken up your run and pair that you had. It was probably worth getting rid of a 7 rather than calling another one into your hand. And secondly, you now have to get rid of your 9s and your 1 so to have an all simples hand. You cannot win with what you've called based on what I can see. So that means you're free. You've put yourself 3 away from Tenpai with that 1 call, where you were, I think, 2 away. If I think about this, yeah. So you've gone from 2 away to 3 away. So that's a reversal. And just to add to this, Draconis has drawn one of his 2-sided, so he's now in a 3/6 Sozu weight. It's not a good weight if we consider what other people are doing, but yeah. Now, I'm convinced that call wouldn't have happened if Solar had reached, and I'm also convinced that, obviously I know, Draconis would have drawn a different tile on that sequence as well, so we'll see what happens. So, will Mono start folding now? Does not. Plays a 7 straight into that. It is a Suji, but Suji is not always reliable. Debbie is now committed to calling everything to make that work, but she has to still get rid of 2 more tiles. So 2 away at best, chasing down a North reach. 8 was safe a couple of turns ago, so that's fine. Starts getting rid of 9s. Okay, so now we have Tenpai here, but it's Tanyo only without a reach. And you can only win off the 4. It's also for a 10 because you discarded the 1 earlier. So this is a for a 10 hand. Mono's chance is starting to come together as well, although missingly he's got rid of all the pieces for it at this stage. So Mono is out. Solar is still going. Debbie's still going, and yep, for a 10, so takes the call here. The downside with calling when you're in for a 10 is that almost anything you do will also put you for a 10. So now you're for a 10 for a single weight here. Technically, it's a 4. This is actually an interesting weight pattern. It's 4, 5, 7, but you're double for a 10 with this, and there's 1 7 left. You can still win if you self-draw it. So free-sided self-drawn for a 10 is probably half a chance of working there, but that kind of went a bit snowballing in backwards. Still, Mono takes the hit with an unsafe tile. I'm not sure entirely why you'd play the 3 in that position. I suppose you see a 5 just played before. 4 was played a couple of turns ago. I don't know if there was a 9 played. Because of the thing there. Actually, let's go back a bit there. So you play 3 from this position. I guess the question is, what else does he have that he can play that's going to be safe? And really, he doesn't have a lot. I'd probably be inclined to risk the one dot against anything here. It's a siege against a tile that was before the reach, and he's played 3 dots after the reach. Although you don't want to use tiles after the reach very often for defensive purposes here. You could also discard the 3 dot actually, because Solo has proved that safe a couple of turns ago. You yourself actually played that early. I don't know if he's still half considering going for this hand from this far back, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 away at this point. Well, 4, 5 away. Yeah, it's not going to happen for Mono. So that was probably a bad thing there. And obviously it is a Mungan hand. So that is the lead gone, 8,000 points down, and Debbie takes the lead. Although it is a 30k game. Alright, so again, quick review of the starting hand for East 4. A couple of loose tiles for Solo there, another one, and a loose middle tile as well. But there's also not a lot of value here, I've got to be honest. You could potentially get this up to Chanter, though that would be very restrictive. When you go for a Tanyo, you've got a lot of tiles that help you out because you've got the entire vein of 2 to 8, which is obviously 7 tiles in the suit that work for you. If you go Chanter, you only get 6, and also a lot of those 6 also work for Tanyo. And Tanyo, as we've meant, is slightly easier, so people will go for that more. We'll see whether this can develop, but I'm not convinced that's going to be a thing. That might also be the only thing you can really go for. You could potentially get some just natural Pinfu out of this. If you can draw, say, 4 to get rid of a couple of loose tiles there, draw something connected to 7. Maybe just have Breach Pinfu. Mono has got an okay-ish hand. Only a couple of loose tiles here. He could easily go for a Tanyo just off of that. Hope to draw something connected to either the 5 or the 8 dot and move on. Debbie has the opportunity to card from a first discard and could potentially go for Honitsu. Although, if you can't there, you consider the Honitsu chances. You only have 1, 1, and 3, and then a couple of these honor tiles. But we'll see whether that actually happens or not. The Manzu are all kind of unrelated to each other. A 4-6 is the only bit of connectivity there. It might be better to just go 1-9 East Green and try and develop the hand normally out of that. But we'll see. We'll see. Draconis, again, not that connected really. 3 loose tiles. 2 of them are bonus tiles for him though, Western Red. Loose 1, loose 7, loose 1. Okay, so this is going to be a slower hand, I feel, than this one. Let's just go 4 turns into the future and see what happens. So, as predicted, Debbie did Khan. Although I'm not sure what he's done for her, in all honesty. We'll debate that as it goes. So, developing here, Solar has picked up some pieces towards just going for a Jin-Chan hand, or a Chanter without honor tiles, basically. Sorry, 2 minutes. Right, apologies. So as saying, Solar is on a Junchan and potentially a Sanjiku, because you could get a 1, 2, 3 in each sequence with this, depending on how lucky you are with the draws. So some development happening. Mono has cleaned up the hand a little bit. Obviously, with the Khan, we now have an additional Dora tile to worry about, so 7s and 8s are both Dora, and has obviously picked up one of these. Still a little way to go, really, to manage anything, but drawing that 7 helps. And cutting me 2, so you got Run, and then the 6, 7, 7. 7s are likely to be pairs at the moment based on things, but you'll change that the moment you draw a pair of 8s. Should that happen. Debbie's still got a way to go here. A couple of loose tiles there, probably at least 3 as well, ultimately. And what is Draconis up to? Draconis is looking reasonable here. Again, he's got multiple Dora, so he's going to try and complete this faster if he can. Probably end up getting rid of the 1 red and 9 and going for a Tanyo. If he draws the 8, he might have to go for Pinfu instead and just take the hit with that. Okay, so decides not to go for Sanjiku, which is probably fair enough considering, but we'll see. I think the only other tile he could have got rid of that was loose was maybe the Friso in that position, giving him additional options. But yeah, Friso might have been correct, but he's already up to 4 pairs now with this. But yeah, we'll see. You might get for triplets yet, you don't know. But there's not that. The thing is, triplets are usually less reliable than going for runs because there's more tiles in the runs for you than obviously pairs of tiles you already have. Obviously doesn't call the Friso, which makes sense. There's the Red Dragon discard. You see 2, they're fine. White Dragon, 1 was played very early, so that should be fine. And South follows out. Debbie discards the 3 from here, which I don't agree with, although I guess it doesn't help much. The thing is, you've got other tiles you need to get rid of first, depending on what you're doing here. And honestly, you're looking at triplets with that 1 call, actually. Yeah, Debbie's hand is a mess, unfortunately. Again, it's probably Yaku at this point. That's the main thing that's killing her again, which is, yeah, awkward. But if you have no Yaku, you cannot win. And if you're calling, you should always have your Yaku in mind of what your hand is actually going to be at the end of it. What are you actually winning with before you start calling tiles? That, though, was a partial help until you discarded the 9, because you could have gone for all triplets. There we. Anyway, Draconis has picked up additional Dora tiles. And Mono has picked up his pair to allow him to reach on the 1-4. So, again, hand is developed quite nicely here. So, reach, Tanyo, and Dora, currently. But has to discard the risky tile to do that. And that's unfortunate in many ways. Because you kept the 9 at this stage, you could have potentially played around that. As it turns out now, unless Debbie's lucky enough to draw another 4, she is going to deal in with this hand, I think. But beforehand, you could potentially have made the argument that it was possibly going for that Toy. Anyway, Pursuit Reach. So in pursuing, you want your hand to be at least valuable enough to make it worth it. So in this case, Draconis is reaching with a 4-5-6 Sanjiku. Is it a Sanjiku? It is a 4-5-6 Sanjiku. So that is immediately 2. It's also Tanyo, I think. Just double checking this actually. 6, 7, 8. Yeah, no. It's because it's a close 7. That's what's throwing me off here. It's technically a bad weight, but and again, we'll talk about that in a moment. 4-5-6 Sanjiku is worth 2. We have initially another 4 Dora plus Tanyo. This is a 7 Han hand with the reach. So yeah, this is going to be huge if that last 7 turns up. But it is a hell weight. There is only one of those left in the game, and we can see it sitting in Solar's hand. So it's a dead reach, but it's valuable enough. But normally the second condition of a Pursuit Reach is you want to have more winning tiles than the first reach, because they've had more time to math it up. That being said, with that discard, I can see that 7 coming out in a bit. So 9 was played. I'm not 100% sure why. It's only the 3rd dot tile actually played in terms of what's actually out on the board right now, and it's connected to the 8, which again I would consider a potentially dangerous area, especially given that he's discarded South first. He could be considering that it's a Tanyo, and that probably makes a reasonable amount of sense based on both these hands, but we'll see. White Dragon has been played against 2 players. It would be a single weight if somebody was going for that. 9 gives the gives Solar 2 safe tiles, so that's automatic draws for them. And boom. Actually, the hand that Solar's got is reasonable at this stage, at least in terms of Tanya. Downside is, of course, you have to play... Actually, the East is fine, because you see 2 of those. The 7 dot, though, is going to be the problem. So he gets rid of the East. Yeah, that 7 is coming out. I just sense it now. Close. And is Debbie going to play that? No. Debbie goes for that way around as well. So she's Shanten from a hand that she kind of was nearly in a while back, but she can't win at this point because that 5 is going to deal in. Is the 5 going to deal in? Oh yeah, 5's now... Yeah, sorry. 5's now her own technical winning tile. So she's technically in Tenpai, but she can't win with this particular hand because you can't have a open double run. Oh, that saved him. That saved him, but it's another Dora wait, and 2 of those are already out, so interesting. I think again this follows the logic of bad pursuit reach, because even with that 8th dot being a Dora, this is reach Dora 2. I'm not convinced that's worth chasing. So that 5 was obviously Debbie's winning tile, but she can't win on it because no Yaku. And all 4 players in Tenpai. So, interesting. Some questionable decisions were made there, but as I mentioned, this was only a friendly game, so people were probably being a bit more aggressive than they would do if it was for any kind of stakes. Solar's hand is kind of terrible again. So we're looking at this. This is a 7 start Kokushi. My usual plan for this would probably be to start getting rid of honor tiles in sequence, so going west, south, east, and then seeing if I can muddle something together with the rest of the tiles. Mono's starting hand looks kind of impressive actually here. A lot of Manzu tiles, pair already established, a couple of loose tiles in other suits. What I'd probably do is get rid of the White Dragon, maybe the 7 so, and then see if this is going to get to Honitsu. As a backup plan, you could go for an Itsu as well. You got 7, 8, 9, 2, 3, 4, 5, a couple of 6s. There's always that hand could go, but Honitsu and Chinitsu are definitely on the cards for this one. Debbie's hand is also kind of meh. Pair of 1s is the only connected real bit she's got really, apart from the 1, 2, 2, 4 side of things here. 7, 8 as well, but a lot to do to improve the hand here. We'll see how that comes in a couple of turns. Draconis has a great start, I think. Pair of Yakuhai, pair of Dora, and a couple of things that are reasonably connected to each other. 6, 7, 8 run as well. We'll see how this goes. So let's spin on about 4 or 5 turns. So 5 turns in, Mono is now looking towards getting that Chinitsu. Is he actually in Tenpai at this point? Not quite. So Ishanten anyway with Mono's hand at this point, but I imagine Mono is going to, because it's happened early enough, is going to drop those pair of 9s and go for a Chinitsu here, because that would be as dealer Mungan automatically, plus potentially anything else that gets added to it. Seems reasonable. Debbie's hand is developing, but he's still got a few loose tiles to go. Has picked up 2 Dora, which is always nice. And Draconis, despite having the best start, hasn't really been able to progress it very far. But this happens as well. I think 2 away at this point. And let's see how this goes. So really nothing much happening from there. Everybody's discarding their own tiles, so same situation. Okay. Hand evaluation time here. Should Solar be calling this? And I think the answer is yes, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's a pair of your bonus tiles, so obviously this means you have a win condition if all goes wrong. Also, this is the last North, so if you don't call it here, you have no chance later in the game. You will not have this. And maybe securing 1 Han doesn't sound great, but when you consider the rest of the hand composition as well, you only need to discard 3 tiles and you can push this into a Honitsu. It is a push for Honitsu, I'm not going to see that, and there is a possible defensive consideration here because this gives you 2 safe tiles. But given this is your bonus wind, I'd go for it. If it was west, if it was the last west instead that Draconis had played, I would probably pass it. But since it is your bonus tile, I would call it and consider the Honitsu plan. You wouldn't have drawn the east in this case, but at this point, another hand develops at this point. You could be on for a Sosushi. I don't know that that's necessarily what you would, the correct thing to go for at this point, but yeah. If you'd called, you would not have drawn this east. That east would have gone to Mono, who would probably have played it. Again, we can only go by the hand that actually got played here. But again, calling the north seems to make sense for me. So Mono draws a number 8, and that puts Mono 1 closer to the Chinitsu, which is an absolute monster being developed here. And then Debbie Khan's the 1. So by canning that 1, what you've done is you've put yourself miles from winning hand because you have no Yaku. Again, if you'd get that triplet of 1s, you were, what, 2 away? You need still something connected to the 4, complete the run here. So yeah, you've gone from 2 away to being, what is the fastest way to Tempire here? You can't get, I'd say get to a Chancer position or something like that, but you can't actually get to 1 anymore because you've used them all. So this is useless, which means giving up Medora with this hand as well now. The only other option is to draw a triplet of a bonus tile, and you can't draw south anymore, you've played those. You can't really draw east, white there's none left. East is the only thing available, and we already know that's not going to happen. So at that point, Debbie has killed all possible threat of her hand. Unless you can get a lot more dot tile, a lot more Sozi tiles. Ito gets played and is now looking towards this Honitsu, I think. Which, again, this looks a lot stronger now you got 3 pairs of these, but I feel that you could still have gone for it with just the 2. South. Unfortunately, that's the one you can't call, and means that South will have to be a pair if it comes up. Hatsu is played. 3 dot follows. So yeah, not much happening in terms of hand changing at this point. There's the West. So this would obviously be your second opportunity to call, and you have to call this if you're going for that hand, and again, you wouldn't have drawn this East. Alright, maybe you wouldn't have got the Sosushi here, but I think you can see that, yeah, that this had potential to do things. Because this hand looks insane until you realise that there are no Norths, there are no Wests. But hey. As I say, it might not have been correct to try for it, because obviously you wouldn't have drawn these Easts, but the Honitsu was definitely on. And now you got to reach against you. So Draconis has drawn the concealed tile here. He's now in his 7 and red dragon weight. Unfortunately, that 7 is in Mono's hand and not likely to move. 1 7 has been played, and now that Solo has drawn the 2 reds, that's going nowhere. Although this does emphasise that had things gone slightly differently, we could have been looking at an all honours Sosushi. And I'm going to emphasise this again for just, it probably would not have happened if you'd have called that North on turn 6. But this is the kind of thing that can happen, and not going for opportunities when they're around, not going for that 1 Han potential Honitsu, might have cost you big time. But hey, different draws, different game. I'd have to go and backwards engineer the whole thing to try and confirm it. Mono reaches with Chinitsu. Do you have anything else? 1, 2, 3, pair of 3s. So closed for 5. So it's 5 only, I think. Nope. No, yeah. Closed 5. I mean, it's not the best shape in all honesty, given things. I don't know if you could have improved that though, because it goes for a 7 on the end there. You might not be able to improve that very much. 1-suit hands are always awkward for sort of mental gymnastics of trying to work out what the optimal weights is, but yeah, it's also a Suji trap. So 2 5s have been played, but you could play a 5 against this. Unfortunately, again, 5 in Debbie's hand is not likely to be played. 5 in Draconis' hand can't be played, so that's a dead reach as well. So waiting a turn during that 6th, how did that change things? So Could have played the 6 had a 2-5, I think, which at least wouldn't have been a dead one. That should have been 2-5-9, I think, if I'm working this out right. And 2-5-9 definitely has a lot more outs than other things, but hey. So Solo just folding out, which makes sense. Debbie did take the call to use Tempai, but again, a Tempai she can't win with. And I think this is just going to go because I think we've already worked out all the weights are dead. Yeah, so Solo folding, Debbie just picking up the I'm in Tempai position but can't win. And yeah, some points get exchanged. So, East 4, second Honba. The important thing to notice about this current situation is that there is 5,600 bonus points on for any win at this stage. So, even picking up 1,000 points right now gets you 6,600. Which, given how close the game is enough for anybody to take the lead. So, any hand is worth the lead right now. So, I hadn't probably meant to click in, but that's fine. So, let's see who can get there the fastest. Unfortunately, all the hands look roughly even in terms of loose tiles. Solo's is possibly slightly better, although pair of non-bonus tiles isn't the best. So we'll just see how this goes on after 4 turns. Okay, so 4 turns in. Solo has in fact called the South, although I don't know entirely that it helps him for the same reasons of Debbie in the last couple of games. It doesn't really give you a Yaku that you can use. We're still in East round. You are sitting North, so you need to really get these done. And we can already see Green is unlikely. In fact, Green can't be done. East hasn't been played yet, but the only other options you have is to either cut the middle 5, 6, 7 and 1 so Dora, or cut the pair of 9 and 5 dot with Dora. Neither of these are particularly good, I have to be honest. Versus the keeping of 2 Souths, yeah. If this was a bonus triplet, maybe, but even then, you are still 3 away from Tempai at this point. So, yeah. So, loose tile to get rid of here. Mono's getting rid of a middle tile, but again, that's to allow him to have the 5-7 that works together. He's got a few middle weights to fill in, but other than that, it's looking okay. Debbie has completed a sequence up top. Seems a bit more sensible this time around. And that was the 4th dragon. That was the right time to play this. But still. You can always keep this as a safe discard for later. And there might be some value in getting rid of dangerous middle tiles first. But I'd have probably got rid of the dragon there. Because you can still draw around the 6. Ignoring the fact that you could potentially put yourself in for a 10 with the 5 you discarded very early. So this means you are committing to the dot Honitsu, which means you badly need to get rid of all these Sozu, and these could become tricky if you don't do these basically immediately. So 2 calls against you. Mono is still continuing to build the hand. It looks like it could be Pinfu, although a couple of pairs here is a little awkward for that, plus a pair of 1s as well. We'll see. We'll see where that goes. Right, another round of discards. How's Draconis doing? Still a couple away from Tempai at this stage. Again, not a lot of value, but as established, not a lot of value is still 6,000 points, basically. Okay, so technically Tempai. Unfortunately, not a Tempai you can win with. So Mono gets another efficiency upgrade and is looking pretty close. Debbie drew a good tile there as well, so she is, I think, 2 away ideally. Yep. Draconis still has a way to go, and now they're getting rid of Sozu, but this is a long trip from 3 calls, and if the reach happens, some of this is going to be dangerous. Okay, 2 runs, open run, so 7 so for the idealized Tempai, I think, although actually that only gives you a single weight. You need to pair one of these up then and discard the other one for the idealized Tempai rather than drawing in the middle. And does. Okay, Debbie decides not to reach with this. She has Pinfu on a 2-5. She doesn't have to reach, but Pinfu Dora 1 currently showing. How many 2s and 5s are left? So all the 5s are left, a couple of the 2s are out. And yeah, again, not sure what Sola's on here. He could be trying to think about maybe switching to Chanter, but even then, you got 4 dangerous stars to get rid of to do that. The Honitsu with the 1 in your hand was actually easier. Debbie's still not reaching at this point. Which again keeps your hand concealed, but and people are playing risky tiles. There might well be some valid plays with that. So Mono, just noticing now, is 1 from 7 pairs at this stage, having dropped at least 1 pair, 2 pairs, 3 pairs actually. Okay, yeah, Mono's not looking good for 7 pairs based on that logic. Red Dragon comes out. So pretty much everyone discarding what they're drawing right now. And yeah, even Draconis is not actually in Tempai at this stage, so this has been a bit of a slow build-up. Well, last chance for Deborah to reach for Richipatsu Haite Sumo. No. Okay, third call. So now the switch has been made to Toy Toy, but you're not actually Tempai yet, and you have exactly 1 draw to complete it. Well, you get the Tempai. But again, a Yakulus Tempai and a Bluff Weight more than anything else. Debbie had a genuine hand. I'm half surprised she didn't reach, given how long ago she had that. But alas, we move on to third Honba. Also, I had not realised the music was not in the first one, so it started up again. Alright, so again, as before, we have 5,900 additional points for any win at this stage. So, yeah, quick hands are to be sought at this stage. Sola's hand, unfortunately, is not great. We have a few bits that might turn into something here. Could be a Honitsu if you can get these 3 sets upgraded. Then just hope to get something along here. Mono has the Ton, has another pair. The hand's okay. Depends how that develops, in all honesty, but seems reasonable. Debbie also has a bonus tile and a Dora available, and I think it has slightly ahead of Mono's here. Got 1 set already. And Draconis, 4 loose tiles. Okay, so a bit of a way to go for most players here. So moving on to turn 5. The attempt at trying to force the Honitsu is not entirely working for Sola, but has drawn another Manzu at last. Unfortunately, that gives Debbie a call. Discarding the 4 with that. I mean, she needs to drop a pair, really, rather than that. So I'd be inclined to drop the 9s here, because they're most likely going to be the safest thing. If you drop a 9 in that position, you're Ishanten. I mean, you're still Ishanten now, but I feel it's a better Ishanten to be on that weight than that one. The closed 4 or the pair weight, but we'll see how that develops. A dot, another 4 dot for Draconis, who is now Ishanten for 7 pairs and 2 Dora. West goes out rather than playing a 9 into this. Mono's still... I mean, Mono could be going for Chanter, but it's quite a way still to go for him. Needs to pair things up. North called. So this is forcing the Honitsu with 3 to go. Well, 2 to go, assuming you can do something with the South. So it might be a bit of an early push. Alright, Debbie now has Dragon Toy Toys set up. Ishanten for that. Can, of course, call 1 or 4 and still be there. Draconis has unfortunately dropped a pair. Or Debbie could call for Tempai there. Didn't for whatever reason. Because that would have allowed you to play that, be on Tempai for a 5-9. None of the 9s have been played, none of the 5s have been played, and that's about as good as the hand's going to get from there. Okay, triplet with the 7 pairs hand. It's always usually a good idea to keep this because it's going to be an easier upgrade if you draw another one later. And if you do draw one of the remaining 2, you can always just swap it back round and go back to 7 pairs. So continuing the 4, so this time the call is made. This time the Tenpai is hit. Unfortunately, if you'd have gone that, if you'd called that 2 first, you'd have been in a position to win at that win with that rather than calling that to get to Tenpai for 1 less tile. And there's the win. I mean, it happened anyway, but a slight efficiency drop really. And this is a bucket load of points. So it is the deal among them, but it's also all of that extra 5,900. So Debbie takes a commanding lead as we enter into the south round. Actually, that was Hanneman. Sorry. Yeah, that was Hanneman. She wasn't dealer at that point. I can pay attention to me. All right. So starting hand again. Solar. This is okay, actually. If we consider this is only 3 away from Tenpai. So, yeah, not too bad. Only a couple of these tiles to get rid of. Needs a bit of luck to draw the 2 or the 7, but can get there. Mono's hand has 2 Dora, but is otherwise a bit all over the place. Debbie's hand looks probably... Yeah, Debbie's hand looks reasonable. Triplet of 6s, couple of loose tiles in the middle, a couple of edge tiles to get rid of. It could be done. It's not as fast as Solar's, I think, but not bad. And Draconis obviously has the pair of East and the South round, which is, you know, a thing. But other than that, he's got a good start. 2 runs already completed, pair. We'll see how this goes. So, turn 4 discards. So everybody's now got rid of a lot of the loose stuff. Solar has unfortunately drawn South into South, which is the bonus tile for the round. And that hasn't really gone anywhere. He's cut the 1s, possibly leaning towards more of a Tanyo position, hoping to get rid of a 9-8. And since you have a 6-8 here, the 9 doesn't do a lot to help you, because the same 7 that gives you 6-7-8 gives you 7-8-9. So if you're going for Tanyo, you might as well just get rid of the 9s when you can. Mono has got Dora free, but still has a bit of work to do. He is the North, so he's got his Yakuhai set up here. So Yakuhai, Dora free is a reasonable route in. And there we are. Okay, so he's still got 2 really to go, maybe 3, depending on how this goes. If he can draw the 2 dot, that'd be ideal for him, I think. But lots of value potentially coming here. Debbie cuts for 9 from this, which I don't necessarily agree with, but again, she could be going for Tanyo. 5 drawn for Solar gives you the run. Green doesn't help. If you were going for Tanyo, I'd probably inclined to keep the 8, although you've played a 7, so I guess double run isn't really a possibility out of that, so fine. Seven is a useful tile here, so that opens this up to be, assuming this is the weight for the end, an 5, 7, 8 weight potentially. And yeah, Ishanten. Draconis still has a couple. Well, he's actually Draconis is Ishanten as well. 2, 5, 3, 6. Third South for Solar always feels bad, but. Again, if you only have the 1 and it gets to that part of the game, it's probably worth getting rid of. What if he's going to draw another one? Did we go to a 7 here, which I don't agree with as a move. 1 would have been a better play from this position. And Draconis has gone into Tenpai silently on a 3-6. This is 4th Homba, so it's an extra 1,200 points on board for this. And Ron. He didn't reach with that. I don't know whether he was looking for something with more value, but I'm not sure what he could have potentially gone for here. I think this might have been reached because it's as far as it can go. So, yeah. He's in a tight battle for 2nd, but he's a long way back from 1st, so reaching was probably the correct play. Nevertheless, he got the win. We're into South 2. So, initial hands. Solar's looks okay. 4 loose tiles, really. Maybe a 5th if we include that in. A way to go, but you could see here a quick... You could see here, this could go for Tanyo reasonably well. And there's potential. Mono has drawn 2 Dora, which always is a plus. Again, a number of loose tiles, but room to develop, room to get something with those. Obviously, he's got to... Whatever Yaku he has to take into account this pair. Debbie has drawn 2 Easts in the South round. Hooray. Hand is okay-ish. None of these have been blistering, I've got to be honest. So then just on to Draconis as dealer. Again, has 2 Dora. 258 pattern here for this set of tiles. One sequence already completed as well. Yeah, Draconis could be off to the races with this one. We'll see. So draw on a potential completion bit there if you can get the 5. Okay, turn 4. I didn't skip them, I just decided I'd go with it, just for slow analysis. So Solar has actually gotten a little closer to where he wants to be. He's got a possible Itsu on, which I'm always going to approve of, which would be Tuhan if he pulls that off, and would give him the dealership. He does need some points, so going for additional Yaku makes sense. Debbie cleaning up the hand slowly, still got a bit of work to do, but is getting closer to a completed hand. Draconis was already in a fast start. Just needs to draw something connected, and he's should be good to go. Mono has gone hard forcing a half flush here. Mono is 37,000 points. Oh, no, wait a minute, hold on. How many points are you behind? 28,000 behind the leader at this stage. So that would require a direct Baiman. So Honitsu or Chinitsu plus Dora is probably his easiest way to get there, but Mono also has a dealer turn coming up, so he might not need to do it right now. We'll see though. Debbie again, just getting rid of these tiles. Gets rid of a pair in this instance. Yeah, probably. If he's committed to the Itsu, I guess that makes sense. He also does have 3 pairs, so should consider getting rid of one of them. Okay, so Mono has made 2 calls and is bluffing, because after 2 calls you have to assume Tenpai. He's 3 away from anything at this point. Well, actually 2 away, really, being honest. But it does make all Sozi tiles a little more awkward to get rid of. That being said, Sozi tile gets played. Debbie drops the 5 she just played. Fair enough. North doesn't do a lot. Forda doesn't do a lot. Okay, place is 7. I suppose this opens up the 2-sided weight, so yep. But it does also allow Draconis to call and puts him in Tenpai, waiting on the 5. So this is Sanchiku Doradora. Unfortunately, it's open Sanchiku, so it's only free Han, but he's in a winning position, so he can potentially snipe whatever Mono's doing if Mono has to get rid of the 5-man, and if Mono is truly on a Sozu Honitsu, he will play a 5-man if he draws one. Mono, however, has just hit Tenpai with that. Dora White Dragon wait, 1 White Dragon remaining. Draconis upgrades his hand, but loses the Sanchiku. So now it is a Tanyo Doradora. Which I guess it was anyway, so it was Tanyo Sanchiku Doradora. Mono does some carnage. Fails to improve. Makes the White Dragon Dora, though. Oh boy. I mean, in Mono's defense of the Khan, he's in 3rd place. He's a long way behind. So anything to increase the number of winning to increase his number of winning draws and his potential hand value makes sense. But as I will say, there are 3 opponents with the same number of tiles as you. So therefore, just on that basis, you are 3 times more likely to help your opponents than you are yourself. With a random Khan out of nowhere. But again, Mahjong is situational. This is a reasonable situation for Mono to Khan in.
No.
Unfortunately, that is a deal in. He could have kept that as well, I think. Might have been able to play the 8. I should also backtrack here. Just bear with. So, what could he have played instead with this one? He could have played the 2-dot if he wanted to do absolutely safe against Draconis. There are no reaches on the board, but obviously you've got 2 players who have called. You can't really play with Sozu. And even with playing this, you are still Ishanten. You're basically being forced at some stage to play this 8-so if you want to stay in Tempai. If you can't make yourself discard it in this position, I think you want to fold rather than continue playing. So, I don't know. Folding 2-so might not, 2-man might not be a bad folding option. You see 2 of them. You know Mono probably doesn't want it. It depends how high you value defense against Draconis, really. Alright, I can kind of see where that's going from. 5 is always awkward to get rid of. Would have been safe. Wouldn't have been safe either in this case, but, you know. So really, it's whether you could break up the 2 for read up. And it was an early-ish 2, so I'd imagine they're safe, but fair enough. I'm not going to criticize too much on this. I didn't have any other options, but I feel that that was probably the signal to fold if you can't get rid of the critical tile because of one of the players. Alright, so into South 2, first Homba. Reasonable from Solar. 3 away. Mono has got a pair of Yaku High. Could potentially do a Honitsu push if he's lucky with his initial draws. Debbie's hit 2 Dora, and one of them is her Seat Wind. Which, you know, that's instant Mungan if you pull off a triplet in your seat. It has another Dora as well, so there's that. Couple of loose tiles to get rid of, but it's an overall acceptable starting hand. Draconis has a triplet, but not a lot else going. He's going to need a bit of work before he can clear things off. So let's go 4 turns into the future and see where we are. So Solar's hand is looking reasonably well developed here. He is 2 away at the moment, which is not bad. Mono interestingly giving up the red 5 when he could have played a 2 instead and kept it. I'm assuming misclick or something because that isn't mono. That isn't mono style at all. Alright, so Solar gets an extra bit of help here. So Ishanten. Fortunately, it's Ishanten for reach only, but he could potentially throw the 9 and get some help there, slowing the hand up a little. Yeah, had you not thrown the 5, you'd have had 2, 3, 4 and 4, 5. Which would have been a lot better than this and puts you half a step closer to get rid of the 1, 3 instead. Alright, Debbie abandoning her own wind. She does have 4 pairs. Ipeiko, Dora. She's in the lead as well, so she doesn't necessarily need to force things, but... So it might just be deciding to play defensive and hold the game out. Draconis, though, is the dealer, and is only 16,000 behind, so... A dealer Mungan for Draconis is enough to overtake. That being said, his hand doesn't look as if it's going to hit dealer Mungan unless he reaches and gets lucky, but you never know. Alright, cutting the 5 here. I would have been cutting the 9 here in all honesty. I know it kind of forces you into a 7 only weight, but you might as well keep the Yaku you're building towards, which was currently Tanyo, and the pair of 5s could have been helpful. Alright, additional efficiency gains for Mono. Only downside with Mono's hand is there's a possibility if Mono draws a free man that it's going to be a first end weight. Alright. See, if you'd have tossed for 9 instead of the 5 in Karn, that would have been far more acceptable. Okay, so open Karning. I don't generally agree with it, although given that Solar Flare's in a massively last position, I can understand the desire to get additional points on the board. Hasn't directly helped anybody except Draconis, though. And that definitely helps Draconis towards his Mungan, and immediately gets Dora free. So Tanyo Dora free Simo would be enough for Draconis to take the lead. And okay. So bluffing a Honitsu, maybe? Still probably would have cut the 9 here because you still need a pair after this point. Both 2 dot and 3 so would have been fine for those. Debbie also attacking. What did she have before this? She had 1, 2, 2, 3, 3. So Debbie is looking for Tanyo, probably cutting the 1 in the near future, but that's possibly aggressive for a lead position. Although she might have recognised that Draconis has a Mungan, and being aggressive and going for a quick hand is the only way to protect the lead. Solar has gone full on tilt. So, on face value, he is only 1 away from a Chinitsu, which is a significant enough hand. It's an instant Mungan for getting that. It is worth it, but you're not in Tenpai, and somebody's got Dora free on the board. This is extremely dangerous. Especially when you know you've got to discard one of these 2 to get there. Probably the 7 dot, but it just looks extremely bad. And there we go. So Draconis now has Tenpai on a 1/4 man. And oh, that's gonna be it. And that's game. It was oh no, of course it's not game. Tanyo. Got away with it. So I guess with the White Dragon, there's only one other play on the board, but given how late in the game it is, it's reasonable to assume, although wrongly in this case, there are 2 of them in somebody's hand. That being said, no calls, so... And there we are. So, Tanyo, Toy, Dora free. This is a huge hand. It's a game-winning hand for Draconis at this point. And Debbie plays into it. Simples, Toy, Dora-san. And that is a lead swap. So if we just go back to when this allows me. So the discard decision then. Against 2 calls, you have to assume Tenpai. They've also played Adora. So if they're playing Adora, 2 Dora in fact, and have 2 calls, Tenpai is absolutely what they have. So given that, what do you know about the hand? Pretty much you know it can't be 1 suit. It's probably Tanyo. They could have a bonus tiles, but they've played a White Dragon, so the only thing they could be on is... Actually, they played East as well. So they played East, they played White. The Reds can't be done. Played Green. So, yeah, he's got to be in Tanyo based on that. There's no other hand he's likely to be in. He could have the triplet 7s, but you see 2 of them. So even if he has the other 2, it doesn't matter. He can't be in that for a particular weight. So it's then just a case of trying to evaluate what he's on at that point. And this is a dealer with 2 calls and this. He's going to be in Tenpai. And it does also look as if Manzu might be the safest thing you can play against him here, except for the fact that the last tile was a free and that was after a call. So, yeah. Your other defensive options, I guess not many. He hasn't played any Sozu either, so it's probable that he has some. It might even be what he's waiting on. The 4 dots on its own could be indicative of things near that. So I'll be honest, her hand is terrible for terms of trying to defend against this. So playing the 2 and keeping your optimal chance of Tenpai might actually be the correct play. Although a 6 was played recently, another 6 over there. All the 7s are gone, but he could. You've got the 8s as well. So if he does have a sequence, it's towards the lower end from that point, 6 being the edge. Yeah. I'd have probably followed up with a 2 in that position, I've got to be honest. I was trying to make sure that if there was anything that would have... there would have been a red flag. Or at least another red flag that would have stopped what I was doing. Okay, into South 3. So, second Homba for Draconis. Solar Flare really has to just avoid dealing in and try to get some value, any value at this point. The hand's okay. You've got a pair of Souths in the South round. You've got 1 run. You've got another pair as backup. You've also got Dora. Although admittedly North Dora isn't that helpful. Mono's hand is good. 2 completed runs. Pair of East isn't great. Alien Wind, of course, but you never know. Might be relevant. Debbie's Hand. A couple of pairs. A couple of things that have ability to develop. And Draconis. Pair of whites. Another pair of eights. Another pair of fives. You could go for a quick attack if he gets this white dragon early enough. Let's see how early he gets it. He gets it immediately. So that's a turn. That's immediate call. He's got 2 other pairs he can go for. Any win will do. He'll obviously want to try and focus on taking out Solar, because if he can just take 4,000 points, free Han basically as dealer. 2 Han if he's got additional triplets. Then he just automatically wins the game by doing that. But let's move on. So, turn 5. Unfortunately, develop's been quite slow here, really. So he's got 2 runs, 2 pairs, and has 3 tiles to try and get rid of, but needs additional specific things to help him out. Mono is looking extremely good here. 2 3-sided, pair and run, and a 3-sided shape. Ishanten, that is pretty good. Debbie, still a ways to go. Additional hand increase in value. Ishanten, but a better Ishanten. Draconis has the dragon, can call anything, and will do. East follows east, which makes sense. Triplet of the ones. I'm not sure that necessarily helps Debbie a great amount, but it's a set completed and technical Ishanten. So just have to get rid of a Tuso for that. And reach from Mono. So this is reach 147 Tanpin. And reach past the Sumo. It would have to be extremely valuable to knock Solar out with this hand, though. Yep, that's a knockout. That's a Baiman. And that's game. So Mono wasn't quite able to get enough. I don't think Mono intended to knock Solar out with that, in all honesty. Just got lucky with the Uradurat. If Solar had stayed alive, Mono would have been within Mungan range of Draconis. So that would have been a chance for a comeback. By upgrading to Baiman, it actually cost Mono a chance, but still, second place secured, and it stopped whatever everybody else was doing with that. Obviously Sumo, so no really worrying about that. People dealing into it, but hey, that's the game. This was a long review. I'm not sure I'm going to do it that in depth if I do this in future, but we'll see. I may also have to get somebody else to help me commentate and just correct things that I don't notice immediately, because I did have to backtrack a little bit. I also had to split this into about 4 videos because my voice started going after a little bit. Hooray. But I'll start doing these occasionally if people enjoy them. Let me know if you have any feedback or comments on this. Any questions, absolutely. Various people will be able to ask. Feel free to join Discord. Friday nights, as usual, will be Task and Fusion nights if you want to just have a few games with us. And yeah, I'll see you another time.